All of my dogs is fade ready. When it smoke, no, we ready for war. Enemy slide, we never scared. No, we already stay with the sword.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the podcast episode. For the month of November, like I said, we will be dissecting basically a new theme. What we're going to be talking about for the month of November, in case you guys didn't pick up on that on my Instagram story, is we're going to be talking about social media. We're going to be addressing social media, and I think it's important to do so. We are in a very social media reliant society. I think it's important for us to kind of educate ourselves a little bit more on the subject, because I think there's a lot of pros. There's a lot of pros about living in such a society, in such a culture, but there's also some cons, and it's important for us to be aware of them, to know how to navigate through that, essentially. And basically that's what we're going to be talking about. And I do encourage you guys, if you guys want to speak off of experience as well, want to share some of the observations that you have noticed for yourselves, feel free to share that in the chat as well. Just to start off, I think it's important to go with a bit of history on the fact, before even going into social media as a whole. I think it's important for us to acknowledge the fact that mankind has continued to make strides in terms of innovation, whether it be technology, whether it be in sports, whether it be in business, in education, agriculture, you name it. And that's what allowed, I guess, our human society, human civilization to continue to thrive despite some of the circumstances of life in which we might have encountered throughout, several generations. And, those strides continue to manifest themselves, and several of these innovations have definitely contributed to the betterment of mankind, while others have definitely contributed to its detriment. And I think it's important for us to appreciate the good when it happens, but to also learn from the negative circumstances that occur, and I guess some of the not so bright ideas that we've had in the past. So it's important for us to kind of look at the history from that point of view and understand, how we've come all the way to where we currently are as a society. And I think it goes without saying that we live in the most technologically advanced era, and we just see it with how reliant we are of technology, whether it be computers, whether it be phones, whether it be TVs, whether it be tablets, you name it, honestly. Even in our workspaces, we kind of rely on those tools in order to function. And yeah, I think it's critical for us to acknowledge that first and foremost, but also to kind of bridge the gap with like how we even got to that point, as well as, what was the intent when we created those tools, when we created those inventions, those innovations. What was the intent behind all of that? And when we look at the history, even before diving into social media as a whole, I think it's important to also know what powers social media. And I think without the internet, we can't really post anything online. We need the internet for that to happen. The internet was honestly like such a boom, which started out with, just being a bit of a research tool and project that was restricted to a very concentrated area and was not widely distributed as we can see it today with the internet that we use now. I think the internet that we're more familiar with kind of started to show itself in the mid to late 90s with Microsoft and all of that coming into play as well. I think it's important for us to acknowledge the fact that before that time, man, it feels like we were living in the Stone Age, just without having all of those resources accessible. But we still see how useful it has become through the years, and how it has also grown in popularity in our societies, in our day-to-day essentials. And even from the internet, a lot of innovative ideas and projects and tools and things of that nature kind of stemmed as a result of it. One of them being social media, which is the subject of conversation for tonight. And social media, I would kind of summarize that as being a platform or several platforms used to either inform, communicate, to create, to do business and express yourself. I think social media has so much potential and such a high ceiling essentially for what it can accomplish. And so I think in a nutshell, that's what it does. And it has greatly shaped our cultures since the mid 2000s, I want to say, and will certainly continue to peak in years to come because there's new platforms coming into play. And I think some of the more popular platforms that we're using today has created such a dependency in our culture that a society without social media is kind of hard to imagine. I guess when you're not thinking about like third world countries where even internet access is probably not a luxury that everyone can afford. But I think about the West and some of the more developed countries, that is definitely not a reality that we're going to be steering away from anytime soon. And I would like for you guys also to comment what was your first social media platform that you utilized in your time. The number one social media platform I might have been using was MSN back in the day, known as Messenger as well. And that's basically how we used to text each other before having cell phones and cell phone plans and everything that goes along with it. MSN honestly was such a vibe. Just coming back from school, you have homework, sure, but like I think that was the first thing that most kids would do, was just hop on MSN, see who's online, and spark conversations. And I think that's where a lot of the love stories also started for some of the high school sweethearts that we hear about. But I think second to that was probably like Facebook for most people. Facebook was also, I think most people my age, so I'm a Gen Z, most people my age would also attest that Facebook is one of the bigger social media platforms where it has really provided them with an online presence. But yeah, just out of curiosity, share your comments and your experience on what social media platform, or what was your first social media platform. Definitely intrigued to know where you guys come from, essentially. Focusing in again on social media and looking at social media today, I think our societies, like I said, are undoubtedly immersed in the world of social media, and either actively or passively. I don't think it's always by choice, but it's just that it's so saturated, it's so everywhere, that especially for people who have cell phones and who have accounts on social media, whether it be just one or several, it's like everything that circulates through those platforms are so saturated. And everyone's motive for the use of social media obviously differs. Of people who use, for example, social media for businesses, the kind of content that they might put online is not always tailored to everybody. It might be targeted to a specific audience, basically the clientele that they're trying to attract to their services. We think about people who are artists, obviously wanting to promote their art, wanting to promote what it is that they bring to the artistic realm of our world. And so pushing that kind of agenda on social media platforms might also be observed. So like I said, everyone has different intentions with their use of social media. And I think that's why we see so much diversity in social media. When I take, for example, Instagram, there's so much content that goes from, funny videos to business videos to major news and things of that nature, right? So again, when you have a multitude of people with several accounts and posting, either on a daily or even on a regular basis, it's definitely going to be flooding your feed and flooding your social media pages. In recent years, I feel as though social media has had a stronghold on the views, on the perspectives, and the thought process of many people. Now, the stronghold that social media has on those things can be both positive and negative. From my personal experience, I've seen a significant shift, especially in 2020, I would say, during the pandemic when everyone was kind of condemned to staying at home. I think a lot of us spent countless hours scrolling through social media to find some sort of entertainment and also just to be able to get through the day because you can't go anywhere. You know, depending on your living situation, some people live by themselves or some people live with people that they didn't really get along with. So the list really goes on. What I've noticed also from that period of time is just the way that like people were so sucked in to social media, especially with regards to the pandemic as a whole, just trying to figure out, you know, what was the root cause of this situation, when is it going to end, when we were talking about the variants and things of that nature. So that never ended, and it was very frustrating to always be exposed to that content on a daily basis. And even when you go to work, for those who are able to go to work for different reasons, it's like you're in it, and every time you speak with your coworker, you have some downtime. We're always talking about the pandemic, we're always talking about COVID and some of the things that, you know, their neighbors are doing or not doing as part of the regulations of, you know, the city, the province, whatever the case may be. And so, yeah, I think it had an effect on people in such a way that it's like whatever is hot, whatever is popping on social media became the sole focus of a lot of conversations with people. It has also influenced a lot of people's behaviors. I was kind of on the fence about bringing this example in or not, but like this whole 6-7 trend that's going on with kids is something that is, you know, frustrating a lot of people, both those who are not in the loop or just those who might understand where it's coming from or sort of where it's coming from, but are just getting annoyed by the constant repetitiveness of it. So there's things like that where it's just like, it can be a disturbance to your day-to-day. And obviously you don't have to put yourself out there. You don't have to expose yourself to social media. But I'm just kind of painting out the reality of where social media has taken our society today and how it controls and shapes some of our behaviors, decision-making processes, interactions with each other. I think it's just a very weird time to be in, especially for the generation of people who did not necessarily grow up with social media being so prevalent in their day-to-day, and now it's like they don't know how to navigate through all of that. In recent years, social media has also shaped views, like I said, with regards to some of the values that you might hold dear to. We think about the ongoing war with like Israel and Palestine and how that is also sparking conversations and dividing people, whether it be like people who share a relationship with one another or just like the entire country being divided, you know, one side siding on Palestine or Israel or vice versa and things like that. So it's causing a lot of mayhem, either purposely or by accident, but it is contributing to some of the chaos that we see also in our day-to-day. And some of the dangers also with social media is that it doesn't always capture the entire story, right? I think it goes without saying when we're looking at Instagram, for example, and people posting pictures, right? The amount of filters that they have to spread all over that picture in order for it to appear appealing to the audience. Nevertheless, like we all know, for those who know the individual personally, they know that they don't look like that. And even for myself, you know, sometimes I do get spooked. I'm like, man, I know this person, and if it wasn't for the filters, I never would have guessed that this is who I'm like dealing with. And so, yeah, I think it's just very important for us to be aware of the influence and the impact that social media has on our day-to-day, as well as, you know, just some of our values, the way that we operate in terms of our convictions. And I just wanted to, like I said, tonight really open up the conversation to that and we will definitely go into some more isolated cases, or specific cases rather, and dissect all of that. But moving on from like where social media is today, I think it's still important to uncover some of the dangers that social media presents. And I think the number one thing that has kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I want to say, is the fact that people now take full advantage of a platform or several social media platforms where there is minimal to no censorship. So my generation, Gen Z, you know, sometimes I get so upset and frustrated with it because people just don't know when to speak and what to say and not say. And so as a result of it, we have a generation of people who constantly run their mouths. They say whatever comes to mind, sometimes without proper context, sometimes without proper knowledge or information about what it is that they are speaking on. And as a result, you know, they risk putting themselves in a situation where it could be detrimental either to themselves, or it could be detrimental to, I don't know, perhaps the organization that they're representing. I mean, so many people have been fired because of stuff that they said or posted or reposted online. And again, it's just a question of having discernment, proper judgment, but also self-control. Like, you don't have to post everything that you see online. And that's another danger of social media, where it's like your entire life is on social media, right? You have individuals like posting stories every hour about whatever it is that they're doing throughout the day, and I'm like, dude, we do not need to know that you had a McChicken for lunch today. And so people have this urge, this compulsive desire, you know, to share with the world everything that's going on in their lives. And the reality of things is that we don't care. We really don't. And it's not to be rude, it's not to be mean, it's just the reality of it. We don't need to know everything that's going on in your life. And having a lack of privacy in your life, you know, you're inviting all sorts of influence also in your own life. Having too many people butt in to how you conduct your life or how you live your life is never a good idea. And so keeping it to a minimal is definitely what's more recommended. Or if you have something, you know, worth sharing with the world, something that you're proud of, something that you're excited about, or something of value, something that's actually important, then by all means. But you don't need to necessarily post every single trivial thing that's going on in your life. Another danger is the fact that people kind of boast in having that freedom to do or to say whatever comes to mind and to post it all online, but they also rebuke the consequences that are attached to it. So going back to the example of, you know, people having lost their jobs, you know, they will be surprised and shocked at the fact that, like, oh, I didn't know that I had to surrender some of my rights to express myself and to say whatever comes to mind just because I work for a certain organization. Well, the organization does not agree with everything that you hold near and dear to your heart. When we're going, for example, in the context of religion, you might express certain values or convictions that are related to your religion that doesn't necessarily apply to the core values of your organization or even those who work within that office. And so you saying those things, you're also failing to acknowledge the fact that you're representing that organization, and expressing yourself in such a way that could tarnish the image or the reputation of that organization now becomes, you're becoming a detriment to the organization, because they don't know what's going to come out of your mouth, and they also don't know what you're going to say that could have a negative impact or effect on their business. So if they decide to fire you and to relinquish that freedom to you to express yourself however you see fit, I don't see why people would kind of contest that decision. And especially if there are some clauses within their contracts, and nowadays it is the case, they will mention how, you know, you can't just post whatever online, especially if the message that you're about to share online could have a negative repercussions on that organization. So it's very important to be mindful of those things. But sadly, my generation, like I said, they lack accountability. They also lack self-control as a whole. They just say whatever comes to mind, and they don't want any consequences attached to it. However, the world in which we live in does not operate like that. So I mentioned the fact that, there are people who are just posting everything. And also social media can be very saturated with a lot of undesired content. And I know that a lot of Christians have spoken on this, the fact that there's so many explicit content that they do not want to be exposed to, and they do whatever it takes. Yes, liability is the word I was looking for. Thank you, Elizabeth. And yeah, they try everything, filtering in their settings, controlling what kind of content that they like. Nevertheless, it still pops up on their feed even though they don't desire it. So it's one of the drawbacks, I would say, from social media. Again, the fact that anyone can just post almost anything makes it very difficult to control what you become exposed to. And not even taking it, to a religious perspective, but as an individual, you might have values, convictions, or things that you want to protect, i.e. protecting your eyes first and foremost, protecting also negative influence from having a stronghold in your life. And unfortunately, the social media platforms that we use today, even though they do have more intuitive settings to help monitor all of that, there's still a lot of loopholes. There's still a lot of gaps in which some of those things still continue to become prevalent. And so as an individual, you have to consider your best interest and the kind of individual that you perceive yourself to be. And if social media in some shape or form is having a negative impact on that, you should have the discernment and also the self-control to know how to regulate all of it. Ultimately, what I want to do this month is to debunk social media in terms of the good that can stem from it. Because again, I would be a hypocrite if at the end of this conversation my conclusion would be I don't think that anyone should use social media. There's definitely some pros to it, and I'm going to be going over them in the upcoming weeks, just because I think there's some great tools for us to use through social media. I want us to really benefit from it and to gain the most of it. But it's important for us to be educated on how to navigate through that, how to use those tools efficiently. And I think there's a lot of people that we can learn from who have mastered that kind of science, if we will, and who have given us tips and knowledge and wisdom in order to navigate in a safe manner through the world of social media. So with that being said, I'm gonna wrap up for tonight. If you like this content on this channel, feel free to drop a follow. It's free to follow. So if this is something that you enjoy, by all means. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.